know we're in the middle of John's 6th chapter as we study the Eucharist these weeks. But to look at this Sunday's readings, we have to begin by looking at the prophet Elijah. Elijah was a powerful prophet with many great works. He was sent to bring God's message to Israel in a time that Israel had turned from God, a time that Israel had become very lax, and next to their temple also put altars to Baal and to other gods, to Baal where they offered sacrifices of their own children. And Elijah, sent by God with God's power, confronts King Ahaz, confronts Jezebel, confronts the prophets of Baal, humiliates the prophets of Baal as he calls upon his God. After a whole day of the prophets of Baal slashing themselves and calling on God to light their sacrifice, he makes a simple prayer to God, who consumes the sacrifice and all of the water that had been poured on it and surrounded it. And then he has all of the prophets of Baal chased down and murdered. Now, because Jezebel is out to get him, he's taken flight out of her territory and finds himself in the desert under a broom tree. And I introduce the power that God worked through the prophet Elijah, because if it could happen to him, it could happen to anyone. Here he finds himself scared, running, depressed, no sense of self or value, kind of at the end of his energy and his time. And there he prays for death. And as he sleeps, something very particular happens, which I think we can expect God to also make happen for us when we find ourselves at the end of our ropes. I don't know, Elijah's sin might have been presumption, that he had started to think that all of this work was his own and it was too much to carry, too heavy to bear. And even though he was always successful, we can't carry even our successes when they are God's. And where he was invited to recognize his relationship with God as he made this journey, we also maybe are sometimes in need of the same recognition. But instead of coming and chastising him because he had sinned, because he had doubted, because he had despaired, God comes to Elijah and meets him in the midst of his despair. He meets him where he's at, in his need, in his brokenness, in his hurt. Under the broom tree, he meets him. And he sends his angel to bring him bread for the journey. And he tells him, eat some more, you're gonna need it. And that ties us back with Jesus, who is the bread sent from the Father. It ties us back to the great gift of love and life poured out by the Father in Jesus as he pours out his blood and shares his flesh. It is the invitation to us as we come to the Eucharistic table, as we live together as the body of Christ, as we're given bread for the journey. Because the journey's hard, and if we start like Elijah did to own all of our failures and all of our successes, we'll need God walking with us. And God who walks with us will offer us bread for our journey. He offers us the great gift of his Son, his body and blood, the bread of life, our Eucharist, broken and given to us, especially when we find ourselves in those moments most tired, most broken, under the broom tree.